The galaxy was silent, except for the screams of a dying world. The planet Velar burned under a red sky as the DRA core empire descended like locusts. Their ships blotted out the sun, raining fire and plasma. The Valari, a small and peaceful race, had no armies, no war machines, no idea how to fight monsters like these. Their cities were dust. Their oceans boiled. Their people ran, but there was nowhere left to go. Deep underground, in a hidden research station, a group of Valari scientists worked in panic. Their leader, an old alien named Saren, shouted over the alarms. "Send the signal. Anyone, anywhere. Someone must hear us." His assistant trembled as explosions shook the ground. "No one will come, Saren. The galaxy fears the DRA core." Saren's eyes glowed faintly blue as he pressed the last command. "Then let our hope ride the stars. If we are to die, let our cry live on." A blinding flash filled the chamber as the signal burst into the void, pure energy carrying coordinates, data, and one desperate message: "We are the Valari. Please help us. We are dying." The transmission left the planet and vanished into the cold dark of space. No one expected it to be found. The Valari base fell silent minutes later. Only the stars bore witness. Light years away, on a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun, old machines slept. For decades, Earth had sent satellites to listen for alien voices. None ever spoke. Most were now forgotten, rusting, drifting, or buried under layers of new technology. But one of them, an ancient military array orbiting the moon, caught something. A whisper. A pulse. The computer tried to decode it, failed, then tried again. Hours passed. The signal broke through. Inside a secret listening base in Nevada, alarms began to flash. A technician on night duty frowned at his monitor. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Strange symbols scrolled across his screen. The system translated slowly, fragment by fragment. His supervisor rushed in. "That's not from Earth," the man said quietly. They stared as the words appeared clearly. "Please help us. We are dying." The room went silent. The technician swallowed hard. "Sir, who's dying?" By morning, the message reached world leaders. It was debated, tested, checked for fakes. The scientists confirmed it came from beyond the solar system. From a real world, far away. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Cameras were banned. No one outside knew what was happening. Generals, scientists, and diplomats sat around a long table. The Secretary General spoke first. "We have received a call for help from another world." Some laughed in disbelief. Others stared in silence. The message played again, echoing through the chamber. "Please help us. We are dying." The room changed. Suddenly, everyone knew it was real. "What if it's a trap?" someone said. "What if they bring war here?" Another voice answered, cold and calm. "What if they're just like us once were, before we learned to fight back?" The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to ignore it. Others wanted to respond. In the end, a small decision changed everything. Earth would listen. A team of scientists and soldiers was chosen to study the data hidden inside the message. And what they found froze them all. The Valari had attached more than a plea for help. They had sent battle data, images, maps, enemy ship designs, and proof of something terrifying. The DRA Corps were not just conquerors. They were hunters. They fed on fear. In a dark room beneath Washington, an old general leaned back in his chair, staring at the alien data. "So they think we'll ignore this," he said softly. "They think humans are just another quiet race." He looked up with a cold smile. "They have no idea who we are." The next days moved in silence. Secret ships were prepared. New technology was tested. The world's best soldiers vanished from public eyes. Every nation was told to stay silent. Rumors spread, but no one knew the truth. Only a few men and women on Earth understood what was about to happen. Humanity was going to answer that call. Not for conquest. Not for glory. But because somewhere out there, someone had screamed for help, and humanity had always answered screams. Late one night, the technician who first found the signal watched the stars through the base window. The message replayed on his screen again. "Please help us," he whispered, almost to himself. They don't know who they called. In orbit, a dark ship powered up. No flags, no signals, no noise. Its hull was coated with black metal designed to swallow light. Inside, soldiers sat in silence. Their armor bore no names, no ranks. Just one symbol, Earth. As the engines ignited, a voice came through the comms. "Command, this is Expedition 1. Launching now." The Earth fell away behind them, small and blue. The stars opened like a vast sea ahead. And somewhere in that sea, a dying world waited. The ship vanished into the darkness, carrying the deadliest beings the galaxy would ever meet. The human race had heard the cry for help. And they were coming. The message wasn't just heard. It was answered. The world had changed overnight, though almost no one knew it yet. Far above the clouds, a handful of secret satellites continued to track the alien transmission, following its faint trail back toward the dying Valari world. In government bunkers and hidden command centers, Earth's most powerful leaders gathered in silence. The message was real. The proof undeniable. The alien voice that cried for help was not some distant dream. It was the sound of another civilization begging for its life. Inside a high-security chamber beneath the United Nations building, a long metal table gleamed under bright lights. Around it sat generals, scientists, and intelligence chiefs from every major nation. They were not there to argue politics or borders. Tonight, they were there as one species. A massive screen flickered on, showing fragments of the alien broadcast. The Valari's blue-skinned faces appeared, terrified, desperate, covered in ash. Behind them, cities burned. "Please," one voice whispered, "if anyone can hear us, we are dying." The room stayed silent. No one breathed. Then a scientist stepped forward. "We have analyzed the data hidden inside the transmission. It contains star coordinates, environmental data, and," he hesitated, looking at his notes, "weapon schematics, enemy biology, and combat footage." A general leaned forward. "They're showing us who's killing them." The footage began to play. A monstrous alien army filled the screen. Tall, armored, reptilian creatures with burning red eyes and claws like steel. The DRA Corps. Their ships hung in orbit like black daggers. They did not conquer for resources. They conquered for pleasure. The sound of their victory roars echoed through the chamber. When the screen went dark, no one spoke for a full minute. Finally, a woman from the European Space Council broke the silence. "We cannot interfere. We are not ready for an interstellar war." An American general shook his head slowly. "We may never be ready. But we have a choice. We can watch them die, or we can show the galaxy who humans really are." The debate began. Some shouted for caution, others for courage. Some feared a trap. Others saw destiny. "If we respond, we reveal our planet's location," said one voice. "If we stay silent, an entire species dies," said another. The room buzzed with tension. Then, from the back of the chamber, a quiet voice spoke. It belonged to an old general named Marcus Hale, a veteran of too many wars. He stood slowly, his medals reflecting the light. "I've spent my whole life seeing what happens when the strong ignore the weak," he said. "These aliens, they called for help, not from gods or heroes, but from anyone. And somehow, they reached us. Maybe that means something." He looked around the room. "We have the power to make a difference. And if these DRA Corps ever reach our world, I'd rather they fear our name first." The room fell silent again. One by one, heads began to nod. Humanity would not hide. Humanity would answer. Within hours, secret orders spread across the globe. Old military programs were revived. Hidden research labs came alive with new purpose. Engineers worked around the clock to refit ships for deep space travel. The world's best minds were gathered: physicists, strategists, pilots, soldiers. They called it Project Horizon, the first human response to an interstellar signal. It was meant to be a rescue mission, but everyone knew the truth. If those monsters had already reached Velar, this would be a war. In the deserts of Nevada, hangars opened to reveal ships no civilian had ever seen. Sleek, dark, fast, humanity's first true warships built for space combat. Inside, crews trained under silence. No media, no announcements, no glory. These were ghosts, preparing for a mission no one would ever officially admit existed. As the sun rose over the Pacific, the first ship, codename Vanguard, was rolled out. A group of soldiers stood watching, dressed in black combat suits, faces hidden behind mirrored visors. Their commander, Colonel Aiden Ross, studied the alien data one last time. He saw what the Valari had faced. He saw the burning cities, the fear, the screams. He clenched his fist. "We're going to make them wish they never sent that fleet," he said quietly. Back in the UN chamber, plans were finalized. Earth would send a small expeditionary force to the coordinates of Velar. No world would know. No official records would exist. The mission's purpose: assist the Valari, assess the DRA core threat, and defend if necessary. The Secretary-General signed the order with trembling hands. "May God protect them," she whispered. 2 days later, deep beneath the ocean in a hidden launch site, Project Horizon prepared for liftoff. The technicians ran final checks as the ship's reactors hummed to life. The entire operation was cloaked from the world's eyes. Only a handful of people even knew the mission existed. In a quiet corner of the control room, General Hale watched the monitors. The old soldier had seen countless wars, but none like this. "We don't know what's out there," his aide said nervously. Hale nodded. "No. But they called for help. And if the galaxy thinks humans are weak, it's time they learn what kind of monsters we can be when pushed." At exactly 3 o'clock hours, the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The massive launch doors opened to reveal the night sky. The stars shimmered, waiting. 3, 2, 1. The Vanguard roared upward, breaking through the ocean's surface like a rising god. Flames erupted as it pierced the clouds, vanishing into the void beyond. Inside the ship, Colonel Ross looked at his team. "Remember why we're here," he said. "We're not just fighting for them. We're showing the galaxy that when humanity listens, we don't whisper, we answer loud." The crew nodded. Silence filled the cabin as Earth grew smaller behind them. The stars stretched into streaks of light. The mission had begun. Far away, in the dark ruins of Velar, the Valari survivors huddled together, waiting for the end. But somewhere beyond their dying sky, help was already on its way. The cry for help had reached Earth, and Earth had listened. The planet Velar was dying. The air was thick with smoke and ash, the sky torn apart by fire and falling metal. The DRA core fleet moved above like shadows of doom, raining destruction on every city that still breathed. The Valari people hid underground, whispering prayers to gods that no longer answered. Hope had vanished, until the night the sky itself screamed. A ball of burning light ripped through the clouds, brighter than anything they had ever seen. For a moment, the DRA core ships halted, scanning the anomaly. It wasn't Valari tech. It wasn't one of theirs. It was something new, something fast. And then it hit. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but its power rippled across the planet's surface. From the blast, smaller craft broke apart, diving through the atmosphere like falling stars. The DRA core commander hissed in confusion. "New enemy detected. Unknown origin." His officers scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The first human strike had begun. On the ground, the Valari survivors looked up from their hiding places, eyes wide as trails of fire crossed the sky. They thought it was the end, until one of the falling stars slowed. Engines flared blue. A sleek metal ship, scarred and battle-black, descended near the ruins of an old Valari capital. The air shook as it landed, crushing ash and debris beneath its weight. The Valari watched from the distance, trembling. The ship's ramp hissed open, and figures emerged, tall, armored beings covered in dark steel. Their helmets reflected the burning horizon. The Valari gasped. These weren't DRA Corps. They were something else. The first human boots touched alien soil. Colonel Aiden Ross raised his rifle and scanned the horizon. The smell of death hit him through the filters of his suit. "This is Ground Team Alpha," he said into his comms. "We've landed. No hostiles yet. Beginning search for survivors." Behind him, his soldiers fanned out with silent precision. They moved like machines, fast, efficient, fearless. Drones flew overhead, mapping the wreckage of a civilization. One soldier knelt beside a burned alien structure, touching the strange symbols etched into the stone. "Sir, this wasn't a war," she whispered. "It was an extermination." Ross nodded grimly. "Then we make sure they don't finish the job." Hours later, the team found them, Valari survivors hiding in a collapsed tunnel. The aliens were frail and blue-skinned, their large eyes glowing dimly with fear. They shrank back when the soldiers approached. One Valari raised a shaking hand, whispering something in his own language. The translator drone beeped softly, translating the words into English. Who are you?" Ross removed his helmet slowly, revealing a human face hardened by war. "We heard your call," he said simply. "We're here to help." The Valari stared in disbelief. These creatures, these humans, had come through the stars just to answer a dying plea. But their moment of peace didn't last. A deep roar filled the air, followed by the crackling of plasma fire. The DRA Corps had found them. Massive creatures in jagged armor stormed through the ruins, weapons blazing. The ground shook under their charge. Ross raised his rifle. "Contact!" he shouted. The humans moved instantly, forming lines, firing in perfect coordination. Their bullets tore through DRA Corps armor. The alien monsters howled in rage and confusion. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this, fast, precise, unafraid. A DRA Corps commander roared orders, swinging a plasma blade, but a human sniper ended him with one clean shot through the skull. The Valari watched in awe as the humans fought like predators unleashed. Every movement was efficient, every command obeyed without hesitation. The DRA Corps were stronger, but the humans were smarter, deadlier, and utterly relentless. Minutes felt like hours. When the dust finally settled, the battlefield was silent except for the crackle of fires. Dozens of DRA Corps bodies lay broken. The Valari stepped out slowly, staring at the human soldiers who stood among the wreckage. One of them, a young Valari woman, approached Ross and touched his armored chest. "You fought them, like demons," she said softly. The translator echoed her words. Ross looked down at her and replied, "We fight for those who can't." High above, the Vanguard ship orbited quietly, scanning for new threats. Inside, the crew intercepted a new transmission, DRA Corps command channels screaming in confusion. "Unknown hostile species engaged. Casualties extreme. Recommend retreat." The humans had just done what no other race had ever done, made the DRA Corps afraid. Later that night, as the soldiers rested and tended to the wounded Valari, Ross recorded a message for command back on Earth. "We've made contact. The Valari are real. Their world is almost gone. The DRA Corps are worse than we imagined, but they bleed." He paused, staring into the alien night sky. "Tell command this isn't a rescue mission anymore. It's a war." Around the campfires, the Valari spoke softly among themselves. They called the humans the Deathborn, warriors who came from a world that forged life and death with equal hands. They whispered that the stars had finally sent them avengers. One Valari elder looked up at the black sky and said, "Our gods did not answer us. But the humans did." Far across the galaxy, in the DRA Corps High Command, reports poured in. "The new enemy fights without fear," one commander hissed. They kill efficiently. They show no mercy. The Supreme Warlord's eyes narrowed. Find them. Learn who they are. And destroy their home before they destroy ours. On the ruins of Velar, Colonel Ross stood beside the battered Valari survivors, watching the twin suns rise through the smoke. He knew this was only the beginning. The DRA Corps would return, and they would bring their entire fleet. But this time, humanity would be ready. He turned to his men. "We're not just here to save them," he said quietly. "We're here to teach the galaxy that humans don't run from monsters." The soldiers nodded. Their armor gleamed in the pale light, a reflection of something new spreading through the galaxy. Fear. The Valari had sent a cry for help. The DRA Corps had answered with fire. But now, humanity had entered the war. And the stars themselves would soon learn what it meant when Earth decided to fight back. The first sunrise over Velar in weeks was quiet, almost peaceful, but beneath the smoke and ashes of the ruined cities, the war was far from over. The DRA Corps had pulled back, not defeated but furious, regrouping for a strike that would make the last battle look like a spark before a storm. Yet for the first time since their world began burning, the Valari no longer wept. They watched, they learned, and they prepared. Humanity had come, and everything was different now. Colonel Aidan Ross stood among the ruins, watching the alien survivors move with new purpose. Where there had once been fear, now there was resolve. Human engineers worked alongside Valari scientists, rebuilding weapons from the wreckage, turning broken machines into tools of resistance. The humans had shared their technology. Simple rifles, basic combat drones, and tactics that could make even a small army deadly. The Valari learned fast. They had no choice. In the shattered courtyards and tunnels, drills echoed day and night. Valari civilians, once gentle and peaceful, now held rifles with trembling hands as human instructors barked commands. "Again!" shouted Sergeant Miller, a veteran soldier with a scar down his cheek. "You miss, you die. There's no second shot out here." The Valari aimed again, their blue fingers tightening on the triggers. The shots hit their marks this time. Miller gave a rare nod. Not bad, Deathborn trainees. The name had spread like wildfire. The Valari had begun calling their human saviors the Deathborn, believing they came from a world that had mastered death itself. The name fit. As training continued, Ross stood over a holographic map inside the human command tent. Drones projected images of DRA Corps troop movements. "They're massing near the eastern ridge," reported Lieutenant Zhao. "If they push from there, they'll reach the last Valari colony by nightfall." Ross studied the map, his jaw tightening. "Then we don't wait. We hit them first." Zhao blinked. "Sir, they outnumber us 5-1. Ross turned toward her, his expression cold. "Then we make them believe we're 10. Within hours, the human and Valari forces were on the move. Under the darkened skies, stealth drones flew ahead, mapping enemy patrols. The plan was simple but dangerous. Ambush the DRA Corps supply lines, cut their reinforcements, and trap their main army in the canyon. At dawn, the battle began. The first explosions tore through the DRA Corps convoys, sending flames into the sky. The aliens roared in confusion as human jets screamed overhead, dropping precision strikes that shattered their formation. From the cliffs, Valari fighters, newly trained and armed, opened fire. Plasma bolts cut through DRA Corps soldiers, their bodies crashing into the dirt. The humans fought beside them, their movements sharp and brutal. The DRA Corps, once fearless, began to falter. They had never faced enemies who fought like this, coordinated, unpredictable, ruthless. Every ambush, every trap was perfectly timed. The humans turned war into art, and the Valari learned to paint in fire. As the DRA Corps lines broke, Ross gave the signal. "All units, advance." He charged forward, leading the assault. Explosions rocked the canyon walls. The ground burned beneath their feet. A DRA Corps war beast, towering and covered in armor plates, charged toward them, roaring. Ross aimed his shoulder cannon and fired 3 plasma rounds straight into its chest. The beast fell, shaking the earth. "That's how we do it," he muttered. Beside him, Valari fighters cheered in disbelief. For the first time in their history, they had won a battle. But victory came with a cost. Many Valari had fallen, and human supplies were running low. The DRA Corps retreated, leaving behind their dead, but everyone knew they would return in greater numbers. Ross walked among the wounded, checking on his soldiers. One Valari woman, a medic named Elin, approached him. "You fight like no one we have ever seen," she said softly. "You fight as if death is nothing." Ross looked at her, tired but calm. "We learned a long time ago that fear doesn't stop death. It only slows down life." High above the planet, the DRA Corps fleet burned in rage. On the command bridge of the flagship, the Supreme Warlord slammed his claws against the console. "They fight like demons," he hissed. "Find out who they are." A scout officer trembled as he spoke. "They are called humans, my lord. From a small, isolated world named Earth." The warlord's eyes glowed red. "Then burn their world next." Orders were sent across the galaxy. The largest fleet ever assembled began to move. Back on Velar, the humans prepared for the next wave. New bunkers were dug, more weapons built. The Valari grew stronger every day. They fought side by side with the humans now, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. Each dawn brought the promise of battle, but also of hope. Humanity had shown them how to fight, and how to survive. One night, as the stars shimmered above the battlefield, Ross stood on a ridge, speaking into his recorder. "Earth Command, this is Colonel Ross. Velar is standing again. The enemy is regrouping, but we've given them something they've never faced before: fear." He paused, glancing at the distant fires. "They're coming with everything they've got, and we'll be ready. Tell Earth we're holding the line." In the Valari camps, children whispered stories of the humans who came from the stars. They said the Deathborn carried the spirits of fallen warriors, that even death itself obeyed them. Whether it was myth or truth no longer mattered. What mattered was that the Valari now believed in something again: victory. Far away, the DRA Corps armada gathered like a storm. Thousands of ships burned through the void, blotting out the stars. The warlord smiled, his fangs glinting in the dark. "Let them fight," he growled. "When we are done, not even their bones will remain." Back on Velar, alarms blared across human and Valari camps. Drones detected massive movement in orbit. Ross looked up as the night sky lit with fire. The next war had arrived. He turned to his soldiers, voice steady. "This is it. They're coming." The humans loaded their weapons. The Valari took their positions beside them. Together, they faced the burning heavens. The tide of war was turning. But whether it would wash away the DRA Corps, or humanity itself, no one yet knew. The sky above Velar was no longer blue. It was red, streaked with the glow of plasma fire and burning metal. The DRA Corps fleet had arrived in full force, an ocean of warships so vast it blotted out the stars. The ground trembled as the invasion began. From orbit, fiery trails rained down, each one a transport pod filled with monsters. The Valari stared in horror, and even the humans felt the weight of what was coming. Colonel Aidan Ross stood on the command ridge, his helmet under his arm, eyes fixed on the blood-colored horizon. "They're here," he said quietly. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Zhao, checked the tactical map. "Estimates confirm over 10,000 enemy ships. We're outnumbered 50-1. Ross gave a grim smile. "Good. That means less time wasted searching for them." The human base buzzed with controlled chaos. Soldiers moved in perfect rhythm, preparing weapons, charging power cells, and securing defensive lines. The Valari worked beside them, fear replaced by determination. They had trained, fought, and bled alongside their human allies. Now, for the first time, they would fight for their world with hope. Human engineers activated orbital mines, hundreds of stealth explosives hidden among the debris fields. Drones transmitted live feeds of the DRA Corps advance. The enemy ships looked like floating fortresses, their black armor gleaming like obsidian knives. The air filled with the low hum of energy weapons charging. As the first wave descended, Ross activated his comms. All units, hold positions. Wait for my mark. His voice was calm, steady, like a man who had seen death too many times to fear it. The DRA Corps began firing before they even touched ground. Plasma blasts tore across the battlefield, lighting up the ruins. Explosions shook the earth. The Valari flinched but held their ground. Then Ross gave the signal. Now. Instantly, the sky erupted. The orbital mines detonated, ripping through the DRA Corps fleet. Massive fireballs bloomed in the void as enemy ships shattered under the surprise attack. The Valari gasped in disbelief. For once, the gods of war were on their side. Human artillery thundered from hidden positions, targeting drop zones. Drones swarmed overhead, dropping payloads with surgical precision. The first DRA Corps units hit the ground and met a storm of bullets and plasma fire. The humans fought like lightning, fast, brutal, and unrelenting. Valari snipers picked off enemy officers, guided by human spotters. For every meter the DRA Corps gained, they lost 100 warriors. Still, the enemy came. They were endless, like a black tide crawling across the battlefield. They just keep coming, Zhao shouted over the comms. Ross reloaded his rifle. Then we keep killing. Hours passed like minutes. The planet shook with the fury of battle. Whole mountains burned. The air was thick with smoke and screams. Human mechs, massive bipedal machines armed with cannons, marched through the chaos, crushing DRA Corps underfoot. But the DRA Corps were not broken. They adapted, changing tactics, swarming the flanks, and pushing toward the human command center. When their heavy siege walkers appeared on the ridge, even Ross's face hardened. The machines stood 2 stories tall, bristling with weapons. "Focus fire," he shouted. "Bring them down." Missiles streaked through the air, slamming into the walkers. One fell, then another, but the third kept moving, firing wildly. It struck the human forward line, sending soldiers flying. For a moment, it looked like the defense would break. Then, from the east, a blinding beam of energy sliced through the walker's chest. The Valari had unleashed their newly rebuilt weapon, a massive plasma cannon powered by human tech. The explosion was so bright it turned night into day. Cheers erupted across the lines. For the first time in history, Valari and humans fought as one army. But victory was far from certain. Above them, the DRA Corps command ship hovered like a black mountain. It released a new weapon, a gravity pulse that tore through the battlefield, crushing vehicles and collapsing bunkers. The shockwave knocked Ross to the ground. His visor cracked as he stood, coughing dust. "Status report," he yelled. Zhao's voice came through static. "We've lost contact with the Vanguard." The flagships hit. Ross's heart sank. The Vanguard was Earth's pride, the symbol of the entire mission. "Get me a signal," he demanded. But all he heard was silence. The ship had vanished from radar, presumed destroyed. For a moment, despair threatened to spread. Soldiers hesitated. The Valari looked to the sky in fear. Ross stepped forward, blood running down his face. "Listen to me," he shouted over the noise. "They think they've won because they broke one ship. But ships don't make humanity strong. People do. Every one of you here, right now, is the reason they'll lose." His words cut through the chaos like a blade. The soldiers roared in response. The Valari took up the cry, shouting in their native tongue. The line held. The fight continued. As the sun set behind the burning hills, the battlefield was unrecognizable, a wasteland of fire and shadows. Yet still, the humans stood. Ross climbed onto a ridge, watching the DRA Corps regroup for another attack. "They don't stop," Zhao said beside him. Ross nodded. "Neither do we." Over the comms, an encrypted signal suddenly crackled to life. A familiar voice came through, faint but steady. "This is Captain Reyes of the Vanguard. We're not destroyed. We're cloaked. Stand by for the counterstrike. Ross's eyes widened. They're alive. The horizon lit up again, not from DRA core fire, but from the return of humanity's flagship. The Vanguard decloaked behind enemy lines, its cannons blazing. The DRA core fleet turned in panic as wave after wave of plasma fire tore through their ranks. The human counterattack had begun. As explosions filled the sky, Ross whispered to himself, "You should have stayed away from Earth." The stars burned red that night, and the world of Velar was bathed in blood and fire. The battle was far from over, but something had changed. For the first time, the DRA Corps were retreating. Humanity had stood against the tide, and lived. The blood horizon marked the beginning of the galaxy's reckoning. The war-torn skies of Velar glowed with the dying fires of battle. The ground was littered with wreckage, broken machines, twisted metal, and the bodies of both human and DRA Corps soldiers. Smoke rose from the horizon like black mountains. The world had become a graveyard, but deep within the chaos, something moved in silence. The Vanguard, the human flagship once thought destroyed, was alive. Cloaked in stealth mode, its dark hull drifted through the debris field of ruined enemy ships. Inside, the crew worked quietly, faces illuminated by dim blue light. Captain Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic display. "We're behind enemy lines," she said. "Their command ship is here. One shot at this, people. We take out their leader, we end this war." The crew nodded. They were tired, bloodied, but unbroken. Humanity had come too far to turn back now. Far below, on the surface, Colonel Ross and his remaining troops held their position among the ruins. The DRA Corps had fallen back to regroup, but everyone knew they would return. The Valari worked beside the humans, patching wounds, repairing weapons, and burying the dead. Ross looked toward the darkened sky. He knew the Vanguard was still out there somewhere. "They'll strike soon," he whispered. "They have to." His soldiers nodded silently. The air was heavy with exhaustion and anticipation. The smell of smoke and ozone clung to everything. In orbit, the Vanguard crept closer to the DRA Corps command ship, a monstrous vessel shaped like a fortress, miles long, surrounded by smaller escorts. Its hull glowed red, like molten rock, and massive cannons lined its sides. Reyes turned to her weapons officer. "Arm all plasma torpedoes. Target their propulsion core. If we're lucky, one shot will cripple them." The officer hesitated. "And if we're not lucky?" Reyes smiled grimly. "Then we make sure they remember us." The DRA Corps fleet didn't see them coming. The Vanguard dropped its cloak and unleashed its entire payload. Dozens of plasma torpedoes streaked through the void, slamming into the command ship's engines. The explosions lit up the sky like a second sunrise. For a moment, it looked like the massive vessel was breaking apart, but then, the counterfire came. The DRA Corps turned their weapons toward the human flagship, firing volleys of plasma beams. Shields flared. Hull plates cracked. "Evasive maneuvers," Reyes shouted as the ship shuddered violently. Sparks flew across the bridge. "We can't take much more of this," yelled the engineer. Reyes gritted her teeth. "Prepare for boarding." In one bold move, the humans launched drop pods straight into the DRA Corps flagship. The pods slammed into the hull, cutting through armor like knives. Human marines poured out, weapons blazing, storming through dark corridors filled with enemy soldiers. The fighting was brutal, close, and desperate. The DRA Corps towered over them, claws flashing in the dim light, but the humans fought like shadows, silent, fast, deadly. Grenades echoed through the ship's hulls. Plasma fire burned against metal walls. The air filled with smoke and screams. Colonel Ross's voice came through the comms, his signal faint but clear. "Vanguard, this is Ross. We see your fireworks up there. Give them hell." Reyes smiled despite the chaos. "Already on it, Colonel." Her troops advanced toward the bridge of the DRA Corps flagship, cutting down anything in their path. They were outnumbered, but their precision was unmatched. Humanity had built its strength through centuries of war, and now, in the heart of an alien empire, that experience showed. Finally, they reached the command deck. The supreme warlord of the Dra Corps stood waiting, massive, armored, and seething with rage. "You dare invade my ship?" he roared. His claws crackled with energy. Captain Reyes stepped forward, her armor scorched, her rifle steady. "You should have stayed away from Velar." The warlord charged, moving faster than his size should allow. Reyes fired, dodged, and fired again, but his armor absorbed most of the hits. He struck, sending her crashing into a wall. Pain shot through her body. "You are insects," he growled. "You cannot kill gods." Reyes spat blood, smiled, and whispered, "Maybe not gods but monsters? That's our specialty." She activated her wrist detonator. The charges her team had planted earlier exploded throughout the ship. The Dra Corps commander roared as the floor shook violently. Flames burst from every direction. Reyes grabbed a fallen weapon and fired one last shot straight into his chest. The warlord staggered, his armor cracking, before collapsing in silence. The Vanguard's crew, still fighting to control the ship, received the signal. "Captain, the charges are detonating. We need to get out now." Reyes limped to the nearest console. "Pull us out. Set the jump coordinates for the shadow zone." The surviving Marines raced back to their pods as alarms blared. The Dra Corps flagship began to tear itself apart, explosions ripping through its massive structure. In orbit, the other enemy ships turned in confusion as their command vessel disintegrated. The Vanguard shot away at full thrust, flames trailing behind. Just as the debris wave struck, the ship disappeared into hyperspace, gone without a trace. Down on Velar, Ross and the Valari watched the sky erupt in light. "What happened?" Zhao asked, shielding her eyes. Ross smiled faintly. "They did it." The largest explosion the galaxy had ever seen lit up the heavens. The Dra Corps fleet broke formation, their lines collapsing without leadership. Valari and human forces seized the moment, striking back with everything they had left. For the first time, the invincible empire was running. Hours later, as dawn rose over the silent battlefield, Ross stood among his surviving troops. "We won," whispered one of his soldiers. Ross nodded slowly. "No. We survived. The war isn't over yet." Above them, in the cold dark of space, the Vanguard drifted silently, systems offline, engines dead. The ship was a ghost now, hidden from sensors, unseen by friend or foe. Its crew worked in darkness, repairing, regrouping. They had vanished from the galaxy's sight, but their legend had just begun. The Dra Corps called it, the Night of Fire. The Valari called it, the day the Deathborn saved us. The humans called it just another mission. But throughout the stars, whispers spread, about a fleet that vanished after destroying an empire's heart. They called it the Ghost Fleet. And somewhere in that silent void, humanity waited, ready for whatever came next. Months passed after the fall of the Dra Corps command ship, yet the galaxy remained restless. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the humans had been destroyed in the final explosion. Others whispered they had vanished into the void to plan their next move. The Valari rebuilt their cities from ashes, their people slowly beginning to believe in hope again. But deep in space, far beyond any known star charts, the Vanguard floated silently in a shadow sector, hidden among dark nebulae. Inside, the surviving crew lived in a state of constant repair. Every system was damaged, every corridor scarred by battle. But their spirits burned bright. Captain Reyes stood on the bridge, gazing at the holographic map of the galaxy. "We've been silent too long," she said quietly. "The Dra Corps are regrouping. If we wait, they'll strike again." Her second officer, Commander Hale, frowned. "We barely have fuel, Captain. Weapons are at 40%. We're ghosts." Reyes turned to him with a grim smile. "Exactly. And ghosts are what they fear most." On Velar, Colonel Aidan Ross and his forces stayed behind to help the Valari rebuild their defenses. The alliance between the two species had become stronger than ever. But Ross could feel the storm brewing. The DRA Corps had lost their leader, not their will. Across the galaxy, their warlords fought for power, uniting under a new figure, a being known only as the Ascendant. Reports described him as something beyond the DRA Corps, smarter, faster, and more ruthless. Ross received a transmission from a Valari scout one evening. The hologram flickered to life, showing a panicked face. "They're coming," the scout said. "Hundreds of ships, all bearing the mark of the Ascendant. They've found Velar." The signal cut out. Ross stood silently, then turned to his troops. "Sound the alarm. The war's not over." High above the planet, the stars dimmed as the new DRA Corps fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their ships were different, sleeker, sharper, pulsing with crimson energy. At the center of the formation floated a massive vessel unlike any seen before, shaped like a blade cutting through the darkness. On its bridge stood the Ascendant, his eyes glowing like twin suns. "The humans thought they could hide," he hissed. "But ghosts can be hunted." His fleet began to descend on Velar. Ross activated the planetary defense grid. Cannons roared, launching plasma bolts into the sky. Valari fighters scrambled to intercept, joined by human drones left behind after the first battle. The planet lit up once again with fire and fury. But this time, the DRA Corps were prepared. Their ships moved in perfect synchronization, slicing through defenses like knives through cloth. Valari forces were overwhelmed. "Where is the vanguard?" Zhao shouted over the comms. "We can't hold them." Ross clenched his jaw. "They'll come. They always come." Far away in the void, the vanguard detected the signal. The bridge lights flared to life. "Velar is under attack," the AI reported. Reyes stared at the screen, her heart pounding. "Plot a course," she said. "We're going home." The ship groaned as its engines came alive for the first time in months. The once broken vessel now looked darker, stronger, rebuilt with scavenged DRA Corps technology. Its new armor shimmered with adaptive camouflage, and its weapons hummed with alien power. "Captain," Hale warned, "if we engage them now, we might not come back." Reyes gave a thin smile. "We didn't come this far to stay dead." The vanguard ripped out of hyperspace like a phantom, emerging behind the DRA Corps fleet. Its first salvo tore through 3 enemy cruisers instantly. Velar's defenders looked to the sky as the impossible happened again. The humans had returned. "It's them!" a Valari pilot shouted. "The Ghost Fleet." The battlefield erupted with renewed energy. The humans' sudden arrival shifted the balance. Their upgraded weapons sliced through enemy shields, their tactics sharp and unpredictable. The DRA Corps were powerful, but the humans were something else, something terrifying. They fought like shadows with purpose. Inside the vanguard, Reyes stood at the command console. "Target their flagship," she ordered. "End this now." But as they focused fire on the Ascendant ship, something unexpected happened. The massive vessel absorbed the attack, its armor glowing brighter instead of breaking. Then, a voice echoed through every comm channel, a deep and resonant tone that chilled even the humans. "You cannot kill what evolution has perfected," said the Ascendant. His ship unleashed a pulse that disabled half of Velar's orbital defenses in seconds. "He's using hybrid tech," Hale realized. "Human and DRA Corps. He's learned from us." Reyes' eyes narrowed. "Then he's fighting ghosts with fire. Let's see who burns first." The battle turned chaotic. The Ascendant's ship fired energy waves that ripped through the atmosphere. Cities below shook as shockwaves flattened everything in their path. The Valari capital was on the brink of destruction when the vanguard positioned itself between the enemy and the planet. The impact was enormous, shaking the entire ship. "Shields failing," shouted the engineer. "Hull breach on decks 6 through 9. Reyes grabbed the console for balance. "Redirect power to forward shields. Don't let him hit the surface." Sparks flew, alarms screamed, but the ship held. Through the smoke and chaos, Reyes stared at the enemy ship on the screen. "Prepare the Omega Lance," she said. Hale looked at her in disbelief. "That weapon could destroy half the planet." "If we don't use it," she said coldly, "there won't be a planet left to save." The weapon began to charge, drawing power from every reactor core. The entire Vanguard trembled as energy built up inside. The Ascendant sensed what was coming and began to retreat, but Reyes wouldn't let him escape. "Lock him in," she ordered. Gravitational anchors deployed, trapping the enemy ship in place. Fire! A beam of blinding white light erupted from the Vanguard, slicing through space. It hit the Ascendant's flagship dead center, tearing through its shields and hull. For a moment, it looked like the ship would survive, but then its core overloaded. The resulting explosion was so massive that it lit up the entire star system. When the light faded, only silence remained. The DRA core fleet was gone. The Vanguard drifted in the aftermath, its systems fried, its crew exhausted but alive. On the surface, the Valari cheered as the skies cleared. Ross watched the burning remnants fall from orbit. "They did it," he whispered. Zhao smiled faintly. "The ghosts came back." In the quiet that followed, Captain Reyes sent one final message across all frequencies. "This is the human flagship Vanguard. The war is over, for now. But if anyone threatens Earth, Velar, or any free world again, the ghosts will rise once more." Then the transmission cut out, and the Vanguard vanished into the void, leaving behind only a legend, a story that would echo across the stars forever.